Welcome, everybody, to the Heart Coherence Collaborative. Today's a really exciting day because I get to introduce everyone to my mentor, one of my mentors, Mario, who's come up with a really fascinating program that I've gotten to partake in recently, which I've had a ton of benefit from. Many of you know Kim Duramo. Mario's the husband of Kim. So Mario, I'd love if you could just start out by introducing yourself to our community and talk a little bit about all the amazing things you're up to in the world.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Kyle, and extremely generous of you to have me come and join your community and share some insights and thoughts. And hopefully by the time that we're done with this exchange and having this share with everybody else, we'll be better off at the end of it. So thank you so much for your efforts and your generosity to have me as your guest today.
My pleasure.
Let me give you just a little bit of my background to all of your community. By education, I am a physician. I'm a Harvard, Yale, and Columbia University trained physician. I'm a radiologist, and I'm dual subspecialized in interventional radiology, which is a surgical limb of radiology, if you will. And the other part that I do, my other subspecialty, is abdominal imaging. But what's interesting is I am kind of like the unlikely comer into this kind of conversations. And I say that sort of gently and tongue in cheek because I have been involved in the mind-body medicine space for at least 25 years. As you mentioned, my wife is Kim Duramo, and some of your community members are acquainted with her and her work as a founder of the American Institute of Mind-Body Medicine. And we have been together for over 13 years. And over the past 13 years, we have been essentially the proverbial no strangers to danger because we have really been through so much as partners in life, as partners in business, going back to 2010 when we started to create a business which was called at the time the Thrive Doctors, where we are committed to elevating the quality of health of people across the planet. And we were doing so with our programs, with our top 10 most listened to iTunes podcast, which was Thrive Doctors Radio. And we had unbelievable guests at the time. And we also did live events, and we have multiple programs for people to be able to be guided by us. So not new to the space. But what's interesting is, and this kind of is the river of life and where it takes you, is that as a straight guy, as an alpha male, as somebody who considers himself a leader in his own right, somebody who's been an independent thinker for a very long time, independent of the education that I've had, something that I have come across over and over and over again for men that impacts men, but also impacts women. And I know that you have a combination of both types of people here in your community, is the following. It's very interesting to me, after having consumed way deep into six figures, doing courses, going to retreats, knowing stuff about heart math, knowing, different people that do all sorts of different programs for couples, people that do programs just for men. And joining all of those over the past 20 plus years, I would go into those experiences, Kyle, and I would come out feeling partially full. And these are some people that are really the top leaders in the industry, whom I have considered mentors myself as well. I have read their books. I have followed their different programs. I have learned an incredible amount of things that have enriched my life significantly. However, I kept on going back to the same situation, which is the following. How come after all of that growth, all of that journey, I would still have situations where I would be with my wife in a state of disharmony? How come if I had gone through all that growth, I still would find myself repeating the same behaviors over and over again, almost as though I was an addict who was trying to leave the addiction, and I would come back to it only to find myself even deeper into the addiction? Mm-hmm. And another way to think of this, Kyle, would be almost like if you have seen the movie Groundhog Day, mm-hmm. and you see Bill Murray, the actor, he's waking up every single day at 6 o'clock in the morning to the same scenario, the same people. And it's like, how is it possible that this is happening to me, that I'm just doing it over and over and over again? And the more that I actually did this journey of introspection and really looking into my contribution to those moments where the relationship was at stake, where there were moments where the bliss and the love was completely demising, I would really go into that whenever I became conscious and aware of my own behavior, and would ask myself, why is it that these things are happening? Why is it that if I have probably more training than most people that I know have been privileged to have that, I continue to have this experience? And I just want to share with all of the men out there and also the women, candidly, that is a very, very painful situation to be in. How is it that if you think you know so much, or you've had this degree of evolution, that you could be experiencing the same thing, that your soul is experiencing the same thing, that the degree of contraction that you feel in your heart, in your chest in these moments continues to be the same? Why is that happening? And that led to really the past 3 years out of the past 25 being the most intense years of my life. And it came down to a couple of things that I identified. And it was really interesting because, as you know, I have been a guest in many people's different programs and so on. And I have been honored to actually be Kim's guest in some of her live programs and some of the online programs where I've spoken about some of the subjects, to people from all over the world. And then after I would speak to these things that I will be sharing with you today in the community members that were part of Kim's programs, they would start emailing or even speaking up right in the program saying, Mario, when are you going to speak to this to our men? And some of the men that would be participating in the programs, they would be like, oh my gosh, it's like I had no awareness of having such context, such framework to think of my behavior and how that is impacting women. So even though I have been creating a very compelling and very heartfelt and very personal message for men, I just want to say openly, this is really a message to human beings. And it became such a strong passion of mine, particularly because of my own suffering in dealing with this woman that I call my wife, that I love so much, that I've created this incredible life with, that I said, I do not want to spend one single day going through my life knowing what I have experienced, what my heart desires, what my heart knows, what my brain has been informed through my heart, that is something that needs to be spoken about and really shared, and have that awareness and not do anything, not taking action in my life for it. I think would have been just as damaging as being in a situation where I am completely disconnected and experiencing disharmony from her. And that led to the creation of what I have called now a live partner. And, it's an interesting journey. People have been asking me, well, how did this really start for you in your life? And what started to bring the awareness? And Kyle, I know you have had a deep journey of introspection, and you're always committed with Leah as well of going to those dark, deep places where we find the biggest riches in our life to grow, to expand, to have incredible new awarenesses, new callings for service from that place of, wow, this is just so painful. This is so deep. This is so raw that I have to speak to it, because I know that if I'm experiencing this, there's other humans in the world that are experiencing exactly the same thing, and they may not have the words to put to this. And I'll tell a brief story. So when I was about 11 or 12 years old, I had these neighbors. He was a doctor. She was a Mexican lady. I was born and raised in Puerto Rico, as you know. And they came to my parents, unbeknownst to me, and they asked them if they could borrow me to go and meet with them at their house because they were having some challenges that they wanted me to talk to them about, right? So they talked to my parents. I wasn't aware of this conversation happening in the background. And then my parents said, hey, Hector and Rebecca, they're going to come and pick you up, and they're going to bring you to their house. Excuse me, it was a weekday. And excuse me, they want to speak to you about this. And I'm like, okay. So I went to the house. It was about, I don't know, 6:30, 7 p.m. in the evening on a Tuesday or Thursday, something like that. They put 2 chairs in front of me, and then I'm like the other chair across from them. And at that point, they start speaking about the challenges that they were having in their marriage. All right, I want everybody who's listening to this right now, think about you being 11 or 12 years old, and somebody's kind of calling you to be like a marriage sort of consultant at that age. It was bizarre, right? Really strange. And then she starts talking about the lack of intimacy and how they're not having sexual relationships because they're just different, they're living in different planets. The most striking image out of that conversation came from looking at his face as she's speaking about all of this. And his face is a face of complete disbelief. This man was out of his own element, out of the zone, and completely distraught and in awe that he was hearing his woman as though this was the first time he had ever heard this, that she was saying all these things, when as he revealed after he listened to her, that how could that be possible that she's so unhappy when I am being such an amazing husband? I am providing this incredible life for my family. We have 2 children. I'm a physician. We have the means to do anything we want. We have a beautiful home. We go and take trips, et cetera, et cetera. There was a tremendous disconnect between what she was saying and how she perceived her lack of fulfillment, and his perception of what in his mind should have been a grateful mate, a grateful woman for all the things that he is doing for her that she's seeing as not enough. I'm 49 years old, fast forward now 37, 38 years forward. Now in a relationship and being married, happily married for now 13 years, 2 children, but having had many, many instances of being Hector. In many instances where my wife and the one who's speaking is Rebecca. Yeah. I have been once again brought in to that conversation, and this has happened numerous times before putting all of this together and basically walking this talk. And there was a big secret that came about, and I speak to this in my work, and I speak about this in the Life Partner course that I created, as you know, which is the fact that men and women, we have been disconnected for hundreds of thousands of years by one particular element. And that element for the men and the women who have not been exposed to this is the fact that we don't have a common language to speak our feelings, to speak about our emotions. The moment that really started to click in, and I started to understand that, and I started to resource myself to be able to do that, there was a complete 180. And Kyle, as it's typically the case, when one speaks to something that you feel very strongly about, and you've had some really significant experiences in your life that have changed your life, and then you share this with others, there's always going to be somebody in the audience that is going to say, "Oh, I know about that. That's obvious, right?" Well, I would like to think that is the case, but we are in the 21st century. The year is 2024. And I can't tell you, and this from being a leader in your community and also a leader amongst men in your groups, where if it was that obvious to me, it was that obvious to you, to many men, then we would not be experiencing our women the way that we do. Now, let me just be, more granular and kind of tease that a little bit. You see, it's very often the case when men get together and we're feeling lost about our women that we have resorted to saying, well, she's being a hormonal because she's in that part of the month, she's menstruating. Or, women are just all emotional. They're just crazy. And depending on how awake, how aware, how much you connect with your feelings, the language to which we refer to our women will evolve and will change to the point that we don't speak about them like that, right? Because one of the things that as we develop ourselves as men, and we're all in that journey, we come to realize that just as a woman is hormonal, and I can tell you this from the medical side, we are hormonal as well.
Absolutely.
We may not manifest our emotions with the same degree of flamboyance that some women do, because there's some women that are quite short in their expression of their emotions. And conversely, you'll find many, many men who could be very shut down, as they will say, or more introverted in their expression of what they feel. But we also have other men in the other side of the spectrum who will be extremely expressive, explosive in manifesting, in letting that come out. And the moment that I started to really deep dive into that, I said to myself, you know what? The missing link that we are experiencing to start unraveling the gifts that a woman has for us, and by the same token, the gifts that a man has to offer a woman who is receptive to that man being able to express within a safe environment for her, so she doesn't feel as though her own life it's at stake or is in jeopardy, right? Because many women have experienced that for men too. Then what happens is that there is this mutual reciprocity of giving, of expansion, of gifting to one another, the mirror that we become for others when we are living from that place and that state where we can openly go into those places of expressing what we're feeling. That started this journey of creating a completely different paradigm of how to educate men who are not necessarily the kind, like myself or perhaps like you, Kyle. We are not necessarily the alpha guy, is not the guy that tends to gravitate. It's like, okay, let me see what is the next course that I'm going to do and what is the next awesome book for personal development that I'm going to grab from the library or buy on Audible or wherever you get it on Amazon. That is not how men operate. Typically,
Right.
the more that we develop our notion that there's more to us, right, than the way that we have been living, the more that we start to connect with that inner world that we have inside of us, which is it's completely full of richness and gifts for us, then obviously it becomes progressively easier and more facile for us to approach it and want to actually be in that state of, I want more, I want to be educated, let me resource myself differently. But typically it's not the case. And when that happens, and let's say that we take one of the one woman in your community that may be experiencing tremendous challenges with a man that is actually going through those things where she is perceiving him as though he cannot go there, he cannot open his heart, he cannot express his feelings. He is, quote unquote, not good at letting her know what his emotions are. This little pinhole that we have just pierced in the fabric of who we are as humans allows us to take a peek into what's possible inside behind that curtain. And what I have come across over and over after coaching people on the subject, having people in my program, having mentees in my Life Partner Mentorship program, in a matter of a session or two, suddenly their eyes go like that. And it's like, oh my gosh, like I didn't even know that I could be speaking in such way. I didn't even know that my heart could open in such way. I didn't even know that in doing that, I can create this degree of synchronicity and coherence with my woman. And what's fascinating to me, especially as I think of your work in terms of coherence and heart coherence and the heart math work, is the fact that the additive effect of a man who's attracted to a woman who is in a relationship with a woman and vice versa, when there is this degree of harmony that gets created by the sharing of the emotions, there is a tremendous bond of love that gets created, a tremendous bond through generosity that gets created. And what ends up happening is that the sum of the two people is far greater than just 1 + 1. It's really exponential. And I know you believe in these things because you've experienced it in your own life, how sometimes just tweaking one thing that perhaps in the beginning skeptically we thought that was not really going to be significant, suddenly you realize that it changes everything. Just like taking on a new diet that suddenly you removed one particular element from the diet and you start to feel this degree of energy, or you're sleeping better, or you wake up and your mouth doesn't have a bad breath in it, whatever the case may be. And what I have found, Kyle, is that this is a constant across the world. No matter who you take, who is that kind of man that we're speaking to, which is the average guy, okay, and the bigger number of men that we have, is feeling that. And yet, we haven't had the forum. You're in a different category because you, as a man, you've created this community and you speak about these things, which is a huge blessing. It's a game changer and enhances the world because of your work. But what I have found is that there is billions of men who are undergoing that same conversation. How come I am not connecting with my woman? How come if I'm succeeding in everything that I touch outside of the household, I come to my house and I just don't feel worthy of this woman? How come I'm not being sexually being able to be connected with her? How come I feel so unfulfilled? Why is it that no matter what I do, I don't feel appreciated?
Mm.
This conversation is really, really powerful. And it's happening in the minds of many men. And I want you to think about this, all of you listening. And Kyle, you can, I invite you to consider this as well. Just put yourself in a situation, bring yourself to a moment where you were experiencing disharmony with your partner. Something happened, a communication was had that it created disagreement, that it created disapproval, that it created disconnection. You see, if you feel into that, you're gonna be able to connect with those feelings right away because all of us men have experienced that. But what's even more powerful is, as the powerful human beings that we all are, men and women, when we experience those feelings, one of the things that comes to our presence, to our awareness, is me not being good enough in this moment. Am I being enough of a good man to take care of this woman? Am I being enough of a lover to be able to give her what she needs?
Mm.
That leads potentially, and I've seen it over and over with so many men, to feelings of embarrassment, feelings of shame, feelings of inadequacy.
Yeah.
And it's very difficult to get out of that cycle, out of that experience when that happens, if we don't have a supporting structure that can allow us to actually understand what's happening in that moment and really see beyond it. And what I have found is that in creating this new language of expressing feelings and emotions, it is a very, very strong invitation, first and foremost, whether it's the man or the woman or both, to tune in as to what is it that I am feeling in this moment? What is it that my body is informing me of? I like to think of the body as the most sophisticated radar known to mankind. We are covered with nerve endings, just like there's neurites in the heart and there's neurons in the gut. We're covered with this incredible capability to sense, to feel, to be informed. And that information that we're feeling as we are interacting with somebody, whether it's our loved one, a stranger on the street, our children, whoever it may be, it's irrelevant. This is always on, and we can always turn up the volume. What I like to call the gain, if we're thinking about radar, you turn on the gain, which is what increases the degree of sensitivity for this incredible instrument to feel what's actually being experienced in that moment. For us men, because of our chronology, and I like to talk about this in the course, we think about Homo sapiens, human beings as we know ourselves to be now. By best of estimates, we've been around for about 300,000 years. And if we think about what men were doing and what women were doing, they were very different things. The degree of how much we could actually, as men, connect with one another and have the sense of emotion, if we imagine it, would be we're actually killing some game, and we achieve that, and it's a moment of celebration because now we can feed our families, the tribe, the clan, as we come back to them. Perhaps I was being chased by an animal and about to be killed, and you saved me. And now we can actually have a moment of bonding and connection and celebrate that, the proverbial high five, however they did it back then, because I'm not dead and I owe my life to you, right? On the other hand, women were back in the village, and the tribe was hanging out with one another, supporting one another throughout the things that women were going through, whether it's actually menstrual cycles, delivering children, cooking for the kids, for one another, while the men were away. They had an opportunity that we haven't had, which is the opportunity of being able to take care of one another in a way that was very different from the way we did it. But the fact of the matter is, now we're in the 21st century. We're not hunting and gathering in that proverbial sense as we knew it many, many years ago. And as time has gone on and the consciousness of the planet has continued to be elevated and ascend and increase in its awareness as in new discoveries, well, and particularly women who've led that in many ways, it has put us in a disadvantage, which is also to say a great invitation and a great opportunity for us to actually expand, to develop ourselves, to create a greater degree of connection from which and through which we gain incredibly. And that is, how are we going to close that gap? Instead of being here and the woman being over here and the men being down here, how do we elevate ourselves and meet them? How do we meet ourselves as men in this process so that we can enjoy from the connection of being with another woman, if that is the case? If you're a single person, man or woman, that your own development of this sense of your feelings and your emotions and how to express them is going to allow you to connect and find that person that you've been looking for, or that person that has been looking for you until that match gets made. So this is, in my estimation, is a game changer. And like I said earlier, if it was that obvious, right, we would not be following the steps of this same pattern over and over again. And I can say that is, in my estimation, a foundational block that creates a whole new base, a whole new experience for how men and women communicate, but more to it, how men and men communicate with one another and how women communicate with one another. So I like to get some of your feelings about this, Kyle, from what you've seen in your community, or any questions you may have about that. Because I know that I've given you a big introduction here, but it's just such an important topic, and it really impacts humanity.
Yeah, that's all just through everything I've observed. There's so many more people going through this than we could even imagine. It's really hard based off of the way, we've evolved as men and women, like you said, to actually have harmony in relationships. It actually takes understanding those differences that you're talking about. And, one thing as I was going through your course that I really appreciated, but you start off by just saying this has to be for you. Like, you have to want to be the one that does this. Forget your partner for a sec, but this just has to be like your desire to do this. And you have to kind of rise to the occasion to like step into this new way of life. And, one thing that I'll say is, going through this program, like, I immediately wanted to talk to other men about some of the things that maybe I had been holding on to. Like, you had called me one of the next days and I was just like, hey, this is what my struggle has been and this is what I'm going through. And that in itself is just such a powerful, it's powerful medicine,
You're spot on. And I would like to expand on that, if I may, because your point is so powerful. I have experience in my life having done a lot of things for my relationship out of, the FOMO, the fear of missing out.
Mm.
I have been that person. I know what it is to have a partner who is very vested in her own personal development, in her spiritual development, in her health development journey, and seeing how that is something that is not compromisable for her. In other words, no matter who's with her or what circumstances are surrounding her, she will always gravitate in that direction because she always wants to improve in those areas. And she has a very deep calling in her life to continue to move in that direction because she finds a tremendous degree of truth in that journey. And along the way, independent of my career as a physician and having seen so many things that happen in human health, having had people's lives in my hands, and also having had people's death in my hands in many instances when I would be operating on them actively, especially during my Harvard years. there's nothing that speaks louder to your own self-commitment, as you're saying it, Kyle, as the moment, the point in time when you or I, Mario, decide that no matter who's around me, I recognize the value of taking this initiative for myself and not doing it just because if somebody else is witnessing me doing it, I will be loved, I will be accepted, I will be cherished in a greater way because now I am displaying a higher degree of commitment to self than I had up to that point.
Yeah.
You see, I think that's a really fraudulent way of doing life. And even if, people in the community or myself, when I used to do things like that, did not think that I was doing it in a fraudulent way, when you actually deepen into what's behind it, what's the intentionality, what's the purpose that you're doing it for, you start to realize, okay, I still did not do it fully for myself. How do I know? Because the results that you may getting from doing X or Y program or reading some book or going into a talk or whatever, you come out of there, it was okay. There was not this level of transcendence. There was not this level of appreciation and gratitude for what you were exposed to, which might have been really, enlightened work. It might have been really transcendental. It might have been incredibly impactful work. But your degree of receptivity or my degree of receptivity might have not been there because my agenda was different.
Mm.
And when I have the integrity and the human honesty to admit to that, a couple of things happen. Number one is extremely freeing, right? Because it's almost like you've had this, it's not almost, it is this huge load is taken off your soul. This huge load is taken off your life. And if you don't like, if some community members don't like to talk about soul or heart or spirit, just think about life in general. Think about waking up in the morning as though you really had a great night's sleep. Yeah. Versus having gone to sleep, intending to sleep for 12 hours, and you couldn't put your eyes together for not even 30 minutes out of the 12 hours. Right. So this is what that speaks to, what that lightening of the soul, lightening of the body, lightening of the spirit feels like when there's this degree of radical honesty and radical integrity of, you know what, I have been completely fraudulent with myself. And I love and forgive myself for that kind of behavior, and just have compassion with myself so that I can be on this, right? Can I revoke that which lives inside of us so that I can have a different experience of myself and create change right now? Somebody listening to this call, to this interview, may be resonating with this in this very moment and saying, you know what, that's what I just needed to hear. Because there are two people that are talking about this and they have done it themselves. Well, I want to be completely honest with everybody. I guilty as charged, and I don't live my life anymore like that, because when you start to make decisions and you put yourself in the very center of your world for the sake of being able to radiate all your love, all your passion, all your compassion, all your gifts to everybody else around it, it's actually an extreme act of generosity and giving.
Yeah, one of the things that this course has really helped me with, bringing it back to the point about how, it has to be for yourself, is one of the things I've struggled with is like going to these courses and like making changes and stuff like that, kind of like, $100,000 on self-help. It's like I would make these changes, right? And then my partner would not have healed yet from past stuff. Say you have like some trauma that comes up, and then I make changes, and then because I have this like reliance on somebody else, I'm not like I'm doing everything perfectly, but then I don't get the reaction I want, and then it sets me off, right? Whereas now, when it's about myself and it's about learning the different language, I realize that my partner heals at a different speed than I do. And when it's about me, it's like, actually, I'm okay. And I've actually implemented this. Like, I'm fine. Even if I'm responding perfectly and you're still, in some past thing based off of what we've experienced, that's okay. Like, I now can have the strength to just in this moment be okay, because I know that I'm actually giving you love, and that's okay. And that no matter what you're going through, I'm just going to try my best to keep giving you love to allow you to heal through this past stuff. And that's something that really I was able to establish through your course.
That's a beautiful point. Thanks for sharing that, Kyle. Um, if you were to ask me, what is the ultimate goal of being a life partner? I would actually have to sum it up in one word, and that is untriggerable.
Mhm.
This is a really powerful concept because untriggerable is not that I don't care.
Yeah.
Triggerable is not that I'm stoic and unmoved or unmovable by witnessing the challenges, sadness, and traumatic experiences of my loved one or loved ones. Untriggerable doesn't mean that I simply, I'm disconnected. Not at all. Untriggerable really speaks to a degree of mastery. What does that mean? You see, when we start to develop this skill of being able to connect with what is it that we're feeling, when we're able to locate and identify where in the body is it that this particular feeling or emotion is being reflected physically in my body. For example, let's say that I'm going through, this is very personal, that I go through a moment of being angry. Let's say that I had an argument with Kimberly over something. In the past, I would be able to identify very quickly that anger would be experienced in my body in the area of my heart. So to the left of my chest, in that same area where the heart lives, I would feel as though somebody was taking their fist and squeezing my chest really, really hardly.
Mhm.
And it would be, oh, like really bad. Or sometimes the feelings of inadequacy or feelings of embarrassment or shame, as though somebody was completely grabbing my neck and
Mhm.
strangling.
Yep.
We all have different patterns
I get it in
of
my neck. Yeah.
the neck in some cases. I would feel, stress, for example, some work related matter. So something that happened in dealing with other doctors, it would be on the left side of my traps,
Mm.
almost as if somebody's just stepping with their foot right over there.
Yep.
Certain Our body is a map and is very, very specialized and very unique for every single one of us, where certain feelings and emotions, they have a corresponding place within our bodies. What happens is, in that journey of mastery or towards mastery to become untriggerable, as I like to call it, it is essential that, as number one, we develop the sense of what is a language for expressing feelings as emotions. After we do that, we start to really sensitize our body. And I really believe in this and I guide people through it because it is one of the ways to actually eventually get to the point where you can be that person that you were talking to, where you can be all loving for your partner and you can let that person have her experience or his experience independent of you at their own pace within their own journey, and yet be completely there in a container like sort of format and embodiment for the experience of the other without having to add any ingredients to that or trying to fix it. You see, one of the things that happens to men, and this particular alpha guy that I talk about in my community, we are fixers. We just see our women, for example, going through a tough moment.
Mm.
And what we want to do, we want to get in there, honey, what's going on? Tell me. Oh, don't you worry. Everything is going to be okay. It's all, listen, I got you.
Yep.
We do that. And as you know, what happens is the opposite.
Yeah.
Sometimes they just go flying off the handle in the opposite direction and they feel we have suppressed them, oppressed them, repressed them.
Mhm.
Why? Because what is it that the soul, your body, is trying to experience? Well, it's trying to experience the outpouring of emotions. You see, emotions need to be in motion. When they are put in a container and they're not allowed to be manifested, to come out, to be seen, they get stuck somewhere in the body. And I've seen this on the medical side of things. It creates disharmony in your body, dis-ease in your body. It creates basically illness, right? When we do this to our women, thinking out of our good hearts as men that all we're trying to do is help them out, we actually create the opposite effect. But there's something that is even deeper for us men that is running that behavior of trying to fix her, to fix the situation, to, it's okay, you don't have to cry, honey, it's okay. There is something that runs even deeper for us that we have not been aware of, which is there's a tremendous degree of discomfort for most men to witness their woman having those moments. Why? Because it lands potentially for me as a man as though I have not been good enough of a man for this woman to not have a perfect, happy life.
Yeah.
And that degree of discomfort that I'm experiencing inside of me is going to drive me to jump into the situation to try to make it better.
So many times I've been there. Like there was a rough patch that Leah and I went through at one point, and she was upset with me, and I would just kept trying to fix it, and it was driving me literally crazy to the point where it was like, if this little thing was just allowed to breathe, and if I just could just like sit in that discomfort she was experiencing and just allow it, it would have went away. But because I was on like the offensive, like, what do you mean? Like, like questioning her discomfort instead of just being like, you know what you're experiencing is fine. And
Yes.
I'm here for you, babe. Like, just take all the time you need in the world to let that out. It would have been it would have been over in 2 days, but then it was just this loop. And I feel like so many people experience that, where it's just like this course just teaches you the tools to actually like, okay, this is not about her right now. It's about me and my reaction and staying solid in that untriggerableness,
Yes.
no matter what.
Yes. And you're 100% spot on, Kyle. Exactly spot on. And I'm glad you're saying it like that. So all the men that are listening to this that can identify themselves with it, it's like, okay, this is me so many times, time in and time out. And think about this for a second. Men in our world, in dealing with other men,
Yeah.
we negotiate through life. Those who may be entrepreneurs or some that work for somebody else, whatever the case may be in your professional life, however you describe that in your life for you. This is no different.
Mm.
One of the things that I like to say in the course and in my life, the most sentient individual in the room is the most powerful.
Mm.
The one that feels the most and can make sense of these feelings and allow them to go through you, because that's what they're going to do. They're passing, right? If you are really allowing, you're letting them pass. If you're holding on to them, they're going to get stuck somewhere and they're going to create a lot of disharmony in your life.
Yeah.
In a situation in a group when a group of people in a business meeting, professional situation, people are exchanging what they think, what they believe in, whatever. To be able to turn that gain on, to be able to feel everything that is coming up for you in that moment, to be able to observe it kindly, gently, lovingly, passionately, with patiently. You get informed of so much of what's happening here. And I'll give you an example of how this is not philosophy. This is work in action. So I had one of my mentees recently call me up out of the blue a couple of days after our session. And it was the first session that we had. He calls me up, hey, Dr. Mario, I just want to share this with you. Tell me what's going on. He goes, I had a meeting today in my company. He's the CEO of a company. And we had to meet with some lawyers because we're going through a lawsuit right now. It's a very significant legal situation. And I put into work exactly what you and I, Kyle, are talking about right now, of having him be the most sentient man in the room.
Mm.
And it was a meeting with other men and lawyers. He said, I put into practice everything that we have talked about until now, and feeling what was coming up for me before I was speaking every single time that I had the opportunity to talk. I just want to tell you that putting that into practice alone saved my company today, moving forward, at least $250,000 worth of legal fees in this battle, because we're able to create a win-win situation, a whole different agreement. And the lawyers who have known me through a process after we were done with the meeting, came up to me and said, two lawyers, and they said, who were you today? Who, what was that all about? Why did you speak in such way? And this is not the guy we've known all along. This was remarkable. And then he said, what really shifted for me was that for the first time in my life, this guy is 50 years old. I tuned in, as you have been coaching me and teaching me with all the stuff of tuning in into what I was feeling. Mm. And the more that I was able to hear and feel and detect what was coming up for me inside of me, the words that were coming out of me were completely different from what would have come out of me if I would have not tuned in.
Yep.
And this conversation is no different than what happens between men and men, but also what happens between intimate couples. It's incredible. And I'll give you another example for the women who are listening to this in your community, maybe thinking, well, this is more a topic for men. I'll actually politely say, no, in fact, this is for human beings. And I'll give an example. So before we launch the program, as you know, Kyle, we had multiple women honor me with going through the Alive Partner course and really just testing it and seeing is this valuable to me as a woman. And one of the women was actually an internationally known spiritual coach. Her name is Bernadette Logue. Bernadette spoke about this and she said, Mario, I have been in the industry for 15 years and I have really coached many, many people from all over the world. And she's extremely committed to her work. It's beautiful work that she does, finding, the soul's purpose in this lifetime. And she said, I have never heard anything in all my years of being in this industry, any course, any book that speaks to how to tune into these things and how a woman can actually get to better know her man, understand what the men go through than what the Alive Partner has done for me. Yeah. And as a product of that and implementing what she learned in doing the course has completely changed her marriage. She has actually heightened her degree of appreciation for her man and her communication with him. I've continued to be in touch with her. It's like it has changed because now I am seeking to connect with them in a way that I didn't know how to before. This is now that I can speak, mind you.
Yeah.
Right? So another feedback that we got is some of the people that are in partnered that were doing the course is they found themselves inviting their females, hey, you got to take a look at this video with me. Take a look at this. And then the woman actually sitting through the whole video and say, wow, that really brought a lot of perspective for me of how to actually navigate through some of these things and challenges with you. And that is just, it's important because think about this, how much less abuse, whether it's verbal, physical, there will be amongst couples, which is to say how much love and connection there will be amongst them. How much less abuse there will be towards children. Because when couples are disconnected, anything that comes your way outside of that subject that is so in your head right now, you don't want to deal with it and you kick it, proverbially speaking. But it could be, I don't want to do that right now and screaming at the kids and this and that. And I have no patience for this. When I was putting all of that and had the inspiration to really put this work and make it physical and bring it to the world, I said, you know what? The ripple effects, we don't really get to experience them, but we know they're real. And how much more love and connection, understanding, and support there can be harnessed inside of a relationship to the point that the woman, because of this new way of giving to him and conversely, how much he can give to her, it potentiates the energy between them so that they can actually grow independent of each other. Like you were saying, I am not doing this for her. I am doing it for me because I recognize that my journey, my patterns have kept me away from fully being able to enjoy the gift that this woman is in my life for me.
Yeah, I've set up, so since your course, I've set up like a whole new routine in my life to just try to keep stuff on my side of the street. And I'll just, if it's okay with you, I'll share just a little bit about my progression. So there's certain things based off of my past and Leah's past that have just kind of triggered me, right? And I think that's normal for any relationship. So anyone listening, you might see me as a spiritual leader and think, I'm probably like this zen out guy all the time. But no, I still have defects that I'm working on just like everyone else. And certain things would come up. And what I used to do was project, like, why are you doing this, right? And so the next step through your course was I basically started saying, when things would come up, I would say to Leah, I'd say, "Hey, look, this has nothing to do with you. I'm just feeling this way, and I know it's silly. I'm having an emotional reaction, and right. So that was my next step, and now I'm having that emotional reaction, and instead of actually even saying anything to Leah, I'm either calling a friend or just like venting it out to one of my guy friends, which is a lot more healthier. And then eventually my next step in the progression is just to handle it on my own. And so that's where I am personally in my evolution, and it's a lot healthier.
And that's beautiful. Thanks for sharing that so vulnerably, because all of those things that you've experienced, I have experienced them too. And I have also been in my communication at fault for being a blamer
Right.
when I know how to be able to communicate what was coming up for me.
Yeah.
And I have done that so many times, and I know that I have inflicted pain on my loved one when I have been in that kind of line of communication and lack of vulnerability and lack of knowledge of how to even embrace what are the feelings, emotions that were arising for me in the moment. And moreover, not knowing, perhaps out of embarrassment, out of not wanting to embrace my imperfections, that not being in ownership of my experience was actually a tremendous tool for creating self disempowerment.
Right.
You see,
Yeah.
the moment that I started to really understand what that behavior was producing, how powerful we all are, each and every single one of us,
Yeah.
in impacting somebody we love so deeply to the point of hurting them to such degree. It is not until we start to really learn the tools, the language, the recognition, the awareness, where we start to really transcend those limitations that have kept us away from really experiencing true love and bliss from that person that we call our partner, our lover, our wife, our twin soul, right? So this is a very important thing. And I will add to what you just said, which is so powerful, Kyle. And once again, thanks for being so vulnerable and which is so powerful. I just want to acknowledge you. Um, the next meta level, the next step up in the evolution of that is something that I talk about the course and identify the alpha and omega energies. You see, the man that takes to think about himself as the alpha guy very often disregards, because of not knowing it, that there's also a deeply omega side running him. When I speak about omega, I speak more about a feminine energy, a receiving energy, a loving energy, a trusting energy, an energy that needs to know that it's safe. You see, another way or a metaphor to think about this, to make it really simple without alpha and omega words, is the following. We tend to think of the omega as the water that is rushing downstream in a river, okay, with all its energy, with all its power, with all the foam on the surface, taking with it everything on its path. And we tend to think about the alpha energy as the riverbed. It's a container. It just allows. It observes that water going down. It's seeing it. The water is feeling everything on its path as it takes it. And this is really important because the next evolution in this alive partner journey, which I live and I practice on a daily basis with myself and with my wife, is the aspect where you create a safe container, a practice where the man starts to deep dive into being able to experience his omega. In this context that we're talking about, his feelings. So now you start to transition from the phase where Whenever you communicated your feelings that were coming up in a way that they could not be received by Leah, let's say in this case, or by Kim in my case, in a way that would actually enrich me as a man, and I could create this beautiful, powerful mirror that would actually allow me to see my own self-reflections so that I can create empowerment through it and healing in my heart, healing in my soul through that experience. So when I started to create this container in this practice, which we call the I see, I feel practice, now I have a weekly, multiple times opportunity to dive into what is it that I feel.
Mm.
And now, because I have adopted this language of knowing how to express my feelings, I have been able to develop and continue to develop my awareness of what's being felt inside of me, independent, like you're saying, of her. This is not about you, sweetheart. It's about what's coming up for me. All I want to just be is heard, not even understood. I just want to be able to share my full essence with you. Everything that is coming up for me, to gift it to you. This is not about you. When we started to do that some years back, it completely changed the dynamics of our marriage, completely changed the dynamics of our sexuality. How much deeper I can orgasm as a man and she as a woman, because there's so much of a connection where there's no barriers between us, where there's no coming to that point of physicality, expecting something in return or seeking to experience something, no, but rather just letting her in her divine feminine nature give to me everything that is available to me in that moment. And for me, as the masculine essence, as the male in this relationship, as the alpha guy, to be able to give myself, and bring all my masculinity without disregarding my feminine side, so I can actually gift myself to her and receive her at the same time.
Mm.
That happens, this aspect of compartmentalizing what's mine and what's yours disappears, because there is an understanding that that is what we're bringing to the table, that my experience is mine, and I am choosing to gift it to you, for you to be a witness of my essence, to be a witness of my life, to be a witness of my journey, to be a witness of my experiences, without invoking you trying to fix me, just like we have tried to do with them, without invoking her trying to give me anything, but rather just to mirror back to me, I see a strong man. I see a man who's suffering. I see a man who is feeling really sad. Whatever is there, I just want to be able to experience that. When that happens, it's next level, and that's what really the Alive Partner course does. And it's been created so that within a matter of 5 weeks, because there's 5 teaching modules with the guided exercises, as you know, we can take our community members from here to up to here, and they can experience that. And consistently, that's been the case, which is just such a miracle.
Yeah, it's fascinating. As you go along in life, your goals shift. I used to want, I had money goals, I had job goals, and I still do. But my number one goal today is actually to be untriggerable. And I want to encourage more men to have that be the number one goal, because I think the universe finds ways to support that energy exponentially, with abundance and miracles beyond your wildest dreams.
You're 100% spot on again. And I will give what may be a silly example, but at the same time, a really powerful example for some people in your community listening to this right now as we speak. I have been on a particular journey with my health as it pertains to what I consume for eating and so on, my dietary habits. And you and I have shared on this subject, and I'll share it completely candidly and vulnerably with everybody who's listening to this. And I have never suffered of any particular illness per se or any diagnosis. But I had, as I've been, advancing in my age, even though I consider myself a pretty young man, like I said, I'm 49. I was sensing that there were some changes in my body that I could feel. For example, going to the gym and not having the same amount of gains that, let's say, I was having when I was in my 30s, for example. My muscle tone would not be the same, or perhaps feeling as though, I know for sure that my testosterone levels are not as high as they were, in a different part of my life, for example. And I started to really kind of deep dive into my intuition and my awarenesses and what is it that life is calling me to do here. And I started to explore different options, and I ended up doing a carnivore diet lifestyle. And that's what I have been on now for over 6 months now, getting close to that. And then I took it a step further, and then I went into what's called the lion diet, which is basically just consuming water, electrolytes, which is salts, and beef or animal meat that is from ruminant animals. And I say that this may be silly for some, or I like to think of it really powerful, because to your point, when I go to the grocery store, and as many of you know, typically, where is the butcher shop located in any grocery store? It tends to be in the back of the store, right? So that's typically the case. So, or either that or one of the sides that is kind of far from the front of the store. So the point is, you have to walk through a lot of different aisles with all of this stimulus and all of these things, like just telling you, buy me, buy me, buy me. And, all the boxes are colorful, and buy the sugar and buy the this and buy the that. And I don't have anything against what people eat. It's such a, out of respect for, human beings' autonomy. But for me, I can see that it's all this stimulation and just basically temptations, right? It's different than somebody that perhaps would have had, addiction for, let's say, alcohol or cocaine or whatever the case may be. We've all had addictions of some sort. And if somebody says in the call, that is not true, well, you're in the wrong group, because we all have. If you've never had a drug addiction, perhaps you're addicted to sugar. So you're addicted to grains, or, maybe to something that you watch on TV. Maybe it's porn. Maybe it's just binging on Netflix. Whatever it is, we're not here to judge it. But if we can actually say, yes, there's some patterns in my life, there's some behaviors in my life where clearly I could say, I think that's somewhat addictive. I would have a hard time letting that one go. If you ask yourself that question, is there something in my life that I would be hard pressed to live without? And you're having a hard time answering that, chances are there's attachment to something. There's attachment to something. There's typically some form of addiction, because there's a payoff. There's something in your experience of yourself, you're gaining from it, even if from an objective bias, you're actually gaining nothing, right? So for myself, in this particular instance, just walking through the aisles and seeing all of this stimulus, right? Just calling me, like, in the beginning, it was super hard. And then once I started to, day by day, understand how much better I was feeling, how much more energy I have, how much more clarity of thoughts I have and clarity of heart I have, how much more untriggerable I have become, perhaps in part due to a combination of the Alive Partner work and how I've chosen to clean up my life from being addicted to, snacks and corns and sugar, like I used to gravitate to. Be the first one to call myself out on it. Guess what? Then all of those things just open up, and it's almost like there's nothing in your path to get to where you need to be. And if they were to bring all of those things to the platter, I wouldn't be able to actually grab onto them. I'll give you an example. I just came back from being in Disney with my kids in Orlando here in the United States. And for those of you who are in this call who've been to Disney, either Disneyland or Disney World or any amusement park, you know that the moment that you park your car and you start walking to the park, there's all sorts of things being bombarded with. They're being thrown at you, whether it's the popcorn, it's the cotton candy, it's the little stuffed doll, it's the this, it's the that. It's like, it's endless. Life is a big metaphor for the amusement park, the grandest of all, being bombarded with all sorts of things. And it affects us. It affects how we operate. It affects how we feel. It affects how we think. We are being completely derailed from the things that matter most. As you've been saying earlier, today, it's like if I want anything, is to be untriggerable. Why? Because you recognize the value, Kyle, of what it is to be living a life in authenticity, in integrity, with really catering to the things that really matter most to you in your life, because you see where the true value is, right? How would it be for all the thousands of men and women who are listening to this right now to be able to live that life with everything that you've been supporting them with, and then to add to them, to make to offer to them the possibility. And if this resonates with you, it's worth taking a look at it. Why? Because it's available to you. There's no accidents in the universe. The fact that we're having this conversation heart to heart, being able to share it, so to serve others in whatever way it was going to serve them, we know that it changes the world right there and then.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I would encourage everybody to take a look at this course if it resonates with you. We have a few minutes left here. So what final thoughts do you have for our group?
I appreciate the question. The final thoughts are the following. If you know, as of this moment, that there is a way to enhance, there's many ways to get to nirvana, as we like to say, right? There's many ways to arrive at places where we really feel enriched, enhanced, allowed. We've enlightened ourselves. We've been guided. We've been supported. There's many ways to do that. And being in part of Kyle's community is one of them. If on top of that, you think about the following, knowing what you know now and aligning yourself with my mission to not have any single person that I come in touch with have an extra minute, an extra hour, an extra day, a month, a year, a decade, and so on, of not being able to really live the life that they want. And people talk about the life of the dreams. If you want to think about it, great. How about the very life that you know it's available to you? And to know that there is this way of enhancing and enriching the way you communicate, the way that you talk to yourself, the way that you talk to everybody around you, so that you can really create meaningful, enriching conversations and partnerships and relationships. Think about and imagine how much better off your life and the life of those around you who get to enjoy you and share their own with yours be like, because of you taking the step to do something for yourself. What would your life look like? I don't want you to spend the 25 years that I had to spend. I don't want you to spend deep in the six figures like I've had to spend, and all the hassles, trials, and tribulations. Because if we know that we can get from A to Z this quickly, why wouldn't you do it? And that is my parting thought. When I have had mentors of mine, Kyle, that have really given me that piece, that I said, oh man, I get it. And then I decide to tell myself, no one single day doing it the way I used to. And then I commit to that. And then basically it's like getting on a rocket ship that is going at light speed. It changes your entire life. You, as a community member, brought yourself to this conversation, to listening to this. Give yourself credit to it and take action. And for those that take action, Kyle, you may want to speak to what we've done for your community, so that those that really feel compelled to take action, so that we can support them, they can take advantage of what we've created for them.
Yeah. You've said that you're giving the community a discount, and that's all available, and we're really grateful for that. So I'd love for you all to come join Mario and myself in the expanding community.
Yeah, and what I'll end up doing, just for all of you who are part of Kyle's community, and we have a special window for the next 7 days from the moment that you're watching this conversation we've been having. Number one, all of those who join the Alive Partner course that are part of Kyle's community will get a 10% immediate discount upon signing up for the course. That's number one. Number two, the first 10 people that signed up from this community for the Alive Partner course, you will get a complimentary one-on-one, so with me, Zoom call, so we can deep dive into the specifics of what's coming up for you in your life and how we can customize the program. How can I let you know what areas to focus on, so you can actually have immediate results, just like Kyle has been having, and there's so many other people who've had the experience to go through it right now, so that within 5 weeks or less, depending on what are your pressing needs, the modules can actually support you to transform your life right now. Number three, the first 100 people to sign up for the Alive Partner course inside of Kyle's community, will get the 5 reference books that we utilize in the course. And I really believe that this is a very, very, very strong and powerful gift to those 100 people. Why? Because now you have all the materials with you and you'll have complete, easy understanding of what we're talking about, and it will empower the journey inside of the Alive Partner course. Number 4, we will have 2 live Zoom calls, one on the front end of the launch date of the program and one on the back end, so that we can answer your questions and guide you so that this can optimize and maximize your gains. And this is not about just like, okay, buy a course and good luck to you. No. This is about a commitment for you to have the best life you've ever had with these tools that you're learning. This is a commitment for us to know that we put something available to you that you can contribute to your family, to yourself, to this community as you come into the gatherings that you have with Kyle on a regular basis, and be coming from that place, as opposed to just like buy something and good luck and thank you so much for your purchase. Not interested in that. We want people to be having results. And my commitment is, like I said, my purpose is that there is no single person that I come across in my life that I know consciously that is having these challenges, and for me not to say, this is available to you, this will change your life. So all of those 4 things, Kyle, have been put together just for your community, for everybody listening to this, so that they can take advantage. And the value of that is way beyond what the community members would be investing in becoming part of the Alive Partner course.
Well, thank you so much, Mario, for your time. This has been a fascinating conversation. I look forward to continuing my journey in the Alive Partner community. And thank you, everyone, for watching. We love you as always. So hope to see you all soon.
Thank you so much. Blessings to you too, and everybody watching.